thanks everyone for joining today. And as I put on the post, this is the first time we're trying LinkedIn Live. So we had some initial hiccups, and hopefully this is streaming live with no problems. And just in case, we are also recording this session so that we could post a recording in case, something goes wrong. So today's topic is on how to ace interviews. There's a lot of discussions about this, especially right now where during the Great Resignation, people have been attending interviews left and right. And they want to know what are some key tips, tools, and strategies for them to ace that interview, for them to get that job offer and get that dream job. So I thought that that's a really important topic to discuss. And that's why, Jess, we have you here. I think between us combined, we have 36 plus years of experience in tech. So I'm pretty sure between us, we can give a lot of actionable strategies for job seekers, for people who want to, prepare for the next interview and appear more confident as well. So first of all, let's start with Jess, if you could introduce yourself for a minute or two to let people know what you do. And then I'll introduce myself and then we could go from there.
Yeah, sounds great. So my name is Jess Lancaster. I've been in the technology industry for about 27 years and have been a manager for about 20 of those years. So I've got a lot of experience in both leading teams as well as interviewing, and have done an awful lot of hiring over those years for various different companies. So that's just a little bit about me. I'm the QA manager at TechSmith currently, the makers of Snagit and Camtasia. So that's just a little bit about me.
Awesome. And for those of you who don't know about me, my name is Raj Subrameyer. I'm a tech career strategist. So I help people specifically in the tech space to find their dream job and become successful leaders. I bring awesome folks like Jess every month to share some light on various topics which could help people get unstuck in their career. So that's about me. With that introduction aside, let's get into today's topic. So Jess, let's start off with this. Why do people get nervous during interviews? That is the first most common thing which people, think about. And when they think about interviews, they associate that with nervousness. In fact, I don't know whether I told you this, but during my undergrad, during my final year, it was campus recruitment season. And I was really good in attending tech interviews, like, coding and then math challenges. And when it came to talking to people, I kept getting rejected because I was a nervous wreck when I was talking to people. And also I had this mentality that if I don't get that job, my life is done, right? So I had that mentality and it put extra pressure on me. I attended 23 final interviews, and finally on my 24th final interview during my campus recruitment, I got a job. So that was me. And then 17 years down the line, yes, I've attended hundreds of interviews and conducted at least 40, 50 interviews, right? So I found out that, a lot depends on it's a mind game, and a lot depends upon how you perceive interviews. So in your view, why do you think people get nervous?
Well, Raj, I think that a lot of people can get nervous going into an interview because they perceive that there's some judgment that is going to be cast on them and their experiences in their career. So I think that people can enter into an interview situation where they feel like, well, I don't think I might match up to this particular job, or there's some of these requirements here that I haven't met. And I would just express to people a little bit of nervousness can be healthy, right? Because it's your body, kind of telling you, hey, I'm going into a situation that I don't have control over. I don't know how this is going to turn out. But I would just encourage people to, before you go into the job interview, take a few minutes to just, if you're driving there or whatever, or if you're getting on Zoom, take a few minutes beforehand and just pump yourself up. Okay. Just do what you need to do. So for me, that can be a little bit of I don't know. I might listen to like Eye of the Tiger, or I might listen to, watch the scene from Rocky where he's running up the steps, do that. And then I take a few minutes and just calm myself down, whether that's for somebody, it's prayer, meditation, a few minutes of that, but get yourself ready. Like you are going in there to present your best self. So, but I think people can feel like they're going to be judged and their career is going to be judged, but coming from the other side of the table, like I'm here looking for you to bring your best self to my organization. So enter in with expressing the confidence that you have and what you are bringing to the table, what you're going to be able to offer my company.
That's a great point. This is what I tell people I work with and I coach. Remember, just like you, even the person on the other side of the table is pretty anxious. It's not that they're carefree just because they're interviewing you. They also have some level of anxiety, and they have a lot of things happening in mind, in the sense, who is this person? How are we going to question them? What is he or she going to think about me? So the anxiety level is mutual. That is one thing to keep in mind. And I love some of the strategies you mentioned, taking some deep breaths, bumping yourself up, saying a prayer or whatever helps to calm your nerves down. I do similar kind of things where I do a lot of self-talk, saying, Raj, you're here for a reason. They have asked you to attend the interview for a reason. They need you as much as you need them. Let's go get this shit. Okay, you got this. So I keep, doing the positive self-talk, and you have to believe in your skill sets as well, because you have certain things to offer. And again, the company wants you as much as you need the company as well. So if you have that mentality, I think that is something, in addition to what you said, could really, really help. And so talking about calming your nerves down, one of the things I've observed is if you proactively do some preparation before interviews, it makes you more confident, right? So for example,
absolutely.
A couple of things I ask my folks to do is make a list of your success and failure stories through your career, because you're going to get different questions like, tell me about a situation where you solved a complex problem and what are the results? Or they would say, tell me about a time where you did something and it didn't work out. How do you feel about it? You're going to get those questions. So why don't you proactively prepare for it, one, and then doing some prior research also helps. But I wanted to get your idea about some strategies people can follow to calm their nerves during interviews.
Yeah. So let me share. I've got probably about 3 or 4 points to share around preparing for an interview. And so one of the first things I would suggest is research that potential employer, get to know them, their company culture, and especially if they have their values, which are probably posted right on their website. Understand what the organization values in their employees, right? And how do you match up to that organization? I mean, if it's an organization where they have values that don't align with mine, I'm probably not going to want to go in and interview with that organization. But to ace an interview, you really better be connecting your experience and your answers with their company values, right? Because those values are entrenched in their company culture. And so the people that have worked there for a number of years probably helped shape those values, and they're going to be the people that are going to be interviewing you. So what I would first say is understand about the company, research them, get to know them, understand their values, and be prepared to have conversations related to that. I can't tell you the number of times people come in so unprepared about the organization, like they don't know the products we make. They don't know much about the company, but when somebody comes in prepared, I'm like, okay, wow, they spent a little bit of time understanding our products. Wow, they downloaded a free trial and did some work with it, and
it shows some interest.
So
it shows some interest, right?
Show some interest, right?
Yeah.
I invited you to an interview, and I'm showing interest in you because I see something on your cover letter that I feel like is going to possibly be a good fit. So show some interest in my organization. Right. And just come in there and try to match things up, which kind of leads me into my next point. Review the job description, really understand what the job description is. So that is like an advertisement of what I'm asking for out of the person that's applying. If your skills don't really match, you're probably not going to either get an interview, or if you do get an interview, you might not make it through the interview process because I've got certain requirements for this job role that I'm looking for, a certain number of years of experience, possibly a degree or a degree in a couple of different areas, and certain products or skills that someone may know. So I would just say review the job description, understand what the job role is, what we're asking, where my skills match, where my skills don't. And then where you're able to explain, connect the job requirements to where your skill set is and why you're the best candidate for that role. And I would also say too, where your skills don't connect, either don't bring it up unless the interviewer is bringing it up, or if they come across a particular skill, say, I noticed you had this in the job expectations. How hard of a requirement is this? Because I may not have this particular tool of experience, but I've used those types of tools before, and I find that I will have no problem coming up to speed on a new tool, right? Like, explain away those reasons why they wouldn't want to move forward with you.
And one thing I just wanted to add was I've managed teams, and the way I used to write job descriptions was that I used to open up 4-5 job descriptions in other companies for the same job, and I literally make up the job description because we really don't have time. And because of that, what happens is, and a lot of managers do that because they use other job descriptions as reference. And what happens is, in the job description, they mention they need everything, A to Z of everything.
Right.
And I don't think a person can ever match 100% of the job description. I think it's really rare in this day and age. And that's why I like one of the things you mentioned, and which I want to stress on, was if there's some skill set they ask and you don't have, there are a couple of things. You could say that, hey, I know you mentioned this, but instead of this programming language, I've used another programming language. I'm pretty sure I can easily pick it up, and I'm really willing to learn. Saying things like that would at least let people know, okay, at least he has a similar kind of experience, not on the exact same domain, but just showing that interest that you're going to learn. And then you could also talk about how you've implemented that complementing skills in your work. Those kind of things actually really, really help. So what I'm trying to say is, you don't have to exactly match the job description. In fact, there's a research conducted by LinkedIn found that only about 25% of the women apply to jobs, even if they don't fit the job description exactly, right? That's because they want 100% match. And what I'm trying to say here is, you'll never, ever get 100% match, but at least follow what you were mentioning, which is that, okay, I know you asked for this skill set, but instead I have another skill set which maps to this. And let me tell you how I've implemented that in my work. And that really helps to, flesh out some details as well. But I just wanted to mention that, but yeah, keep going.
Yeah. And I was going to say too, that a lot of people going into an interview can fall victim to imposter syndrome, right? They believe that all these other candidates that are coming in know so much more than they do. They believe that the job requirements, every one of those has to be met in full or exceeding what those requirements are. And, in reality, people don't know more than we know, right? We all know what we know. And there's Venn diagrams where those overlap with other people's knowledge. But there's a lot of things that employers are looking for that are not going to show up on your resume, like a can-do attitude, like the hard work, the diligence, being personable, like a person that comes in with energy and stuff like that and engages with you. That is going to have me look past some of the areas where I might be like, oh, well, I really have that as a requirement, because I'm like, then I'm starting to think in my head, I can train them on that, right? Like I'm making an assessment as I'm going through the interview process as to what, with this candidate, what will I need to do to ensure that they're successful? They may not be successful coming right in the door, but there may be things that I need to do to train them and work with them. I'll just be honest with what you know and what you don't know. And I'll say this as a manager who's interviewed people for 20 years, don't try blowing smoke at me. Okay. Like, don't try making things up. Right. I've smelled that smoke for 20 years of interviewing. Just come in, be yourself, let your enthusiasm shine. and take a dedicated interest in tackling the learning that would be necessary for you to come up to speed on the job role. Because I'll tell you this story. Years and years ago, I'd probably been interviewing people for like 5 or 6 years. I had a candidate come in. They had the resume and I asked them questions, and I'd always plan to ask detailed questions about something that's on a person's resume.
Right.
And they had a particular job line item on there that applied to the job that I was hiring for.
Right.
I always do what I refer to as the deep dive, right? I'm gonna go deep in that area.
Yep.
So I'm asking them about that, and I will have follow-up questions about that too. I asked them about their experience in that area and at that job and how it translated what we did here. And I was looked back with a blank stare. And the silence felt like an eternity as time continued to go on. So I re-asked the question, still a blank stare.
Right.
I don't think that person ever worked there, and they just copy and pasted something on their resume because they couldn't talk about that. That is going to end an interview very quickly. So just make sure that you're honest about what is on your resume. Don't make things up, right? Be honest and true.
And one thing I wanted to add was, if you don't know something, you could just say, hey, I didn't know that, but I'm really willing to learn if given an opportunity, right? When you say that, that is actually better than making up stuff and then going deeper into a hole and then you never be able to get back from it. And yeah, I've been there, done that, and I learned the hard way. So that's why I tell people, if you're not expected to know everything. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And then one thing that I have that is a little bit of a pet peeve of mine when I'm interviewing people is, please don't go into an interview and be self-deprecating, right? Do not bring up just the problems with you and negative in that way about like, well, I don't know anything in any of these areas. I don't know, like, or just apologizing, right? I was in an interview one time and had a person just apologizing for family situations that had occurred outside of their control as to why they had a gap in unemployment. Just explain it. You don't need to apologize for things that happen in life. We're all human. We understand that. So just, bring your best self to you and don't apologize.
So till now, a couple of key points which we have been discussing about, just to summarize it, was researching the company in terms of the values, their products, their services, because that shows proactiveness, right? And then don't do self-deprecation because it doesn't look good on you, and you really want to just know the best parts of the person and their experience, right? The third thing is, don't make up shit during the interview, because you'll easily get caught, because the people who like 15, 20 years experience can easily make it out. No one is a fool here. Instead, you could just say, hey, I don't know that exactly, but I'm willing to learn if given a chance, right? Saying something like that may actually help you, right?
Right.
So one of the other things which I usually ask people to do as well, apart from researching the company, is also research the interviewers. So what I do is, say, for example, if I'm going to interview someone, what the person needs to do is go on LinkedIn, literally put Raj Subrameyer. You're going to get my whole bio LinkedIn profile. Totally. There, you start looking at stuff which are my interest areas. If you go to my LinkedIn profile, then immediately you'll see motivation, leadership, entrepreneurship, and then AI, software testing. You can find out interest areas, and then figure out some icebreaker conversations you could use before the start of the interview. Not a lot of people do that. And this is proved by research, where interview decisions are made within the first 5 minutes. It's like going on a date. You want your best foot on the date, and you want to only tell them about the best things, right? And you want to impress the person within the 1 hour period. So what I usually ask people to do is, so they'll go to my profile and say, for example, I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. They would say, oh, by the way, I noticed you're from Ohio. Say I went to school at Ohio State. Then a person would say, I saw that you went to school at Ohio State. Go Buckeyes. If they say that, then I say, yeah, man. Yeah. And so immediately the anxiety level in the room has gone down, because now you've found an icebreaker conversation and found some commonalities, and now you're piquing their interest. And say, for example, I gave a couple of TEDx talks, and then if you saw one of my TEDx talks, you'd say, I love that talk on toxic leadership, especially these three key things. Man, it's so valid in today's day and age. You immediately, that's it. I'm in love with you, because now you've seen my work and you're talking about it. So that shows proactiveness, that shows research. And within the first 5 minutes, you're having an icebreaker conversation, which helps to bring the anxiety level in the room as well. So that is something I really wanted to add. What are other strategies which you believe would help people during interviews, apart from what we already talked about?
Yeah, I've got a couple other ones, but I did just want to key off something that you had just mentioned. Researching the people that are doing the hiring. I think that is a great point to bring up. And I remember some years ago speaking at a software conference, and about a year later interviewed someone, and I said, "Why are you applying for this position?" And they said, "Well, I saw you speak at a software conference and I thought that'd be a great place to work." Nice. Immediately, I was like, okay, you liked me enough to apply here, that you got some street cred. Exactly. Build some rapport with me because you liked my conference talk, right? And you could articulate what you took away from that. And in the way that I was speaking, it was like painting the environment that I worked in, and the person was like, I want to be at that kind of place, right? And so it was just it was cool. And that person works with me today, so it's and they're a great employee.
This is a key point, folks. If you want to get a job with and working for Jess, just say that you've seen him talk.
Right,
and immediately you'll get hired. So
right, yeah. But it's only that happened only one time. But the chances of like somebody being near you to apply for a job when you're speaking like halfway across the country is usually pretty rare. But I was most disappointed that they didn't come up and talk to me like after my session. Honestly, they didn't. They were just, I didn't even know who they were, but didn't get a chance to meet them. But anyway, I'll move on to a couple of other points here. So questions. Let's talk about questions. Number one, practice answering interview questions. Like go through, Google a list of interview questions and practice some of those questions. Like what is your answer going to be like for those? And know that some behavioral questions are probably going to be asked, right? And you could, when somebody's asking you about a behavioral question, like, what would you do in a particular situation like this? Or tell me about a time that you were incredibly work and how did you handle that? Or just questions related to that are very behavioral and or situational. Use like a SAR approach, right? And, cover the situation. Action is the second part. What action did you take? And then R is result, SAR, situation, action, result. That's a model for you kind of telling your story, because you depending on how you're telling the story, it could end with success or it can end with failure. But then what did you learn from that failure, right? Just cap that failure right off. Practice your storytelling, as you kind of already alluded to. And again, I'll go back to you with those questions and understand those questions and your answers. Look for opportunities to connect your experiences back to that organization's values, right? Bring it full circle around there. So that's me starting about asking. So practice interview questions.
And one thing I just wanted to add before you continue to your point was that is an amazing point, and often people do not pay attention to it, because you're going to get questions like, tell me about yourself. Why don't you practice that? Yeah, and be prepared for it, because they're going to ask about your experience. They're going to ask about, tell me about a situation you did something good or something bad.
Right.
And sometimes they may also ask, but they stopped asking nowadays, what are your strengths and weaknesses? But the point is, there's some common questions people are going to ask. So what I tell people as well right now, especially in the age of COVID, is record themselves answering those questions on your QuickTime Player. If you're using Mac, and I don't know, it's been 10 years since I use a PC, whatever software they use in PC, like Windows Media Player, I don't know whether that still exists. But the point is, record yourself answering those questions. And then the more you practice, the more confident you get during the interview. Because the common mistake which I've seen people make is they just go to the interview and then whatever comes, the first thing in their mind, they just start saying something, right? Instead, as you said, situation, action, and result. What was the situation? You're painting the picture. What was the action you did, right? So I tell people, answer like this. So the first thing I did was blah, blah, blah. The second thing I did was the third thing, fourth thing, blah, blah, blah. Then the results, like you said, what was the results of your action, the data and facts, right? So that really, really helps. And you can prepare proactively beforehand, even before attending an interview. And that goes back to this point of how to calm your nerves. That is by preparing for these kind of questions beforehand. But yeah, that's a great point. And you had some more points. Keep going.
Yeah, it just reminded me, my son who's in middle school recently had to do his midterm exam. And I said, okay, well, let's spend some time going through and practicing and answering questions and things like that. He came home from his exam and he said, I got it done quickly and I really knew the answers really well. And he felt good about that experience that he had. Why? Because he was prepared, right? So going into an interview, you need to be prepared. And so when we talked about like practicing those interview questions, I think one of the things that you can do is tie that back to what I would call your big three, right? What are the big three things that you offer this organization related to the description that you want to connect the interviewer with you so that they leave that interview with the impression of knowing what those big three things that Raj or Jess or whoever is interviewing is going to bring to the organization. Is it that you're analytical and have a strong attention to detail if you're applying for a job that requires that, right? That you dig into the hardest problems an organization has and have had a track record of solving those problems. And, if it's related to that job, that person walks away with thinking, I think that this person is going to be a good fit because these are the things that I know they're bringing to the table, rather than me having to try to decipher it from the questions that I'm asking and extract it out of a person. Just if you practice your answers, then you're better prepared to offer that to me, and I can continue asking you more questions and have the time to be able to do that, rather than you spending a bunch of time thinking.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. And one more thing I wanted to ask related to this was related to interviewing was do you look for people with degrees and certifications, or do you value any experience? The reason I asked this is, for example, I was heading the mobile testing team for Expedia, the travel booking company, and I was transplanted from Cleveland to Chicago. That's why I came to Chicago in the first place, to form my own team, recruit my own team, build the whole mobile testing division. And the HR was screening resumes with master's degrees and bachelor degrees in computer science. And then one day I said, you know what? I've just been going through this, I don't seem to find any interesting resumes. Are you screening resumes beforehand, or are you just giving me all the resumes? Then she said, no, I'm just screening the resumes based on the degrees. I said, okay, stop doing that, because I want to know the experience rather than the degree. And to cut a long story short, my team had a person who had a PhD in astrophysics. He was a great Ruby coder and Python coder. And we were doing automation, and then we had another guy who didn't have a degree. He was a great manual tester who had a great attention to detail and very process oriented, and who could help me with that. Then, I had two vanilla software development engineers and tests like me who were technical enough. And then I had another person who had great domain knowledge about flights, how flight works, how the systems work, which none of the folks, including me, had, right? So then people thought I was crazy. Then in a month, we were one of the most high-performing teams. We found so many defects which existed for the past 10 years. And based on research, it's found that people with different kinds of mindsets and different types of skill sets really help to build high-performing teams instead of recruiting the same replica of you, right? But anyways, what I was trying to say was, I do not give a shit about degrees. I care only about the experience, and like you, I deep dive into the experience. But what do you look for, and what do managers generally look for these days?
Well, it really depends, I think, on the position that's being recruited for. Because if it's a senior position, we might expect, more experience and possibly a certain type of degree. But usually in TechSmith and a lot of our job postings that we put out there, they'll have, if you have a bachelor's degree, we might require, a year worth of experience or something or two if we're hiring somebody in just at kind of a lower level. But in the job description, it's going to have details related to this degree or similar degree and this experience, or so many years of experience in lieu of a degree, right? Because we don't want to limit people, because mainly what I'm looking for is I'm looking for skill. That's what I'm looking for. And I've seen people that have had computer science degrees that could come in an interview, but the skill isn't demonstrated through the interview process. And that's a challenge for me, because I'm not hiring you for a piece of paper that you have. I'm hiring you based on the experience and what you've accomplished, because that's what I need somebody to accomplish that. What you've accomplished, I need you to accomplish that here where I'm at.
Right.
So that's really, I guess I would say, more what I'm looking for.
Yeah, that's a great point. And related to interviewing, one of the common things which I get asked during the workshops I do and the talks I do is there, are in-person interviews different from virtual interviews via Zoom? Because in this day and age, everything's via Zoom. And I believe there are certain things which you have to be mindful of during virtual interviews compared to in-person interviews. But before I give my 2 cents on the topic, I wanted to see whether you had any ideas or tips for people to ace virtual interviews like Zoom or Google Meet or whatever they're using.
Yeah, a couple of tips. If you are interviewing with people virtually, I would say, just like you're bringing your best self there, bring your best environment that you can bring to that situation. So have a 1080p high def webcam. Okay. You can probably pick one up for $30 on Amazon. Get yourself a microphone.
Right.
So that your audio is going to be clear, and maybe a headset to talk with, or a decent speaker, because half the time you could be on these calls and if you're using like laptop speakers or whatever, and people are the resolution is terrible on the camera and it's facing up, and you're not in a good and quiet environment where you can talk to somebody. It's the background isn't well presented. You've got you're in your junk room and you got piles of stuff in the back, right? You're not bringing your best self in there.
Right.
So I would say that there's maybe a few more things like that in the virtual environment that you have when you're meeting somebody on Zoom. You have total control over those things. So, spend a little bit of money. It's going to be worth it in the long run on the interview if your audio is very clear, if your picture is very clear, those types of things.
100%. I cannot stress on the fact that having good audio and video quality is so important. It's not only for people attending interviews, even if you have a job and attending meetings, it really, really helps to have a good speaker,
right?
A good microphone and a good camera,
right?
Because
it's
that's
not
the only way of communication, and to see the body language and stuff, it really, really helps.
Absolutely.
Right.
And it's not for me, it's for everybody else that's like on the other end, right? Because if they can hear me better, if they can see me better, they can pick up on things. So it's all around better experience for them.
And another thing, just to add to what you were saying in terms of the tips, another thing is about eye contact. And as you said, just treat it like an in-person interview. Usually people have multiple screens like me. For example, I have a screen here where I'm trying to make sure LinkedIn Live doesn't go down. And then I have a monitor here, but I'm maintaining eye contact right now with you because this is a conversation instead of looking like this or looking like this, right? So
okay. I've got a tip on this one.
Yep.
I got a tip on this one, how to maintain eye contact with a person. Okay. My monitor is faced directly at me. Okay. I've got a second monitor here. It's faced directly at me. my webcam sits right at the top of my monitor, and I have my Zoom window shrunk up so that you are just below the camera, because I am looking, it looks like I have exact eye contact with you, but you are just below the camera. You're not like off here where, I mean, it wouldn't make any, I mean, you're not connecting with somebody.
Right.
If I'm looking at a monitor over here at a picture, right? So put that person directly, shrink them up in that Zoom window, make them small right below your camera, and that will give the other person on the other side the impression of eye contact.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Minimizing the window a little bit and just keeping it below the camera so that it looks as if, you're talking straight to the person with the eye contact. I think that's a great tip. Another thing which I let people know is sometimes during virtual interviews, people get nervous, just like in-person interviews, and they forget some important things which they want to say. So what I ask people to do is have Post-it notes stuck around your monitor, and note down some hints like award, then certification, and stuff like that, so that when you actually attending the interview, you have these Post-it notes, and then through conversation, you can still bring up those awards or accomplishments that you really want to talk about. And in that way, you don't feel nervous and you don't want to remember everything. So instead, you can have Post-it notes stuck all over your monitor. And in that way, you can still look confident and still actually, ace that interview and make sure you highlight the important points. That's
a fantastic idea. That is, I never even thought about that, but that is an absolutely fantastic idea, because you can't do that in person when you walk into an interview. But if you're on Zoom, you can have your cheat sheet cliff notes about yourself, questions and things that you have, all that stuff too. That's good.
Yeah, literally right now, I have one Post-it note with some key themes which I wanted to cover, right? So you may see me slightly moving like this, but the point is then I come back here, because in that way, I still keep it engaging. And then I also, look at the key points and stuff, looking at my notebook. The only thing which I'm doing in my notebook is after this interview, I'm going to summarize all your key points for people to read and post it on different social media channels. That's the only reason why from time to time I'm doing this. But otherwise, I'm just going with the flow with the common themes. But those are really great points. And also maybe having a virtual background, a good virtual background may help. I hate virtual backgrounds because I move a lot. And then it looks like a magic show where all of a sudden my hand comes out. I hate that, right? So I generally keep my background pretty clean. There's no moving parts. And this is who I am. But that works for me. But in general, if you don't move a lot, you probably could have a good virtual background. And I think if you go to unsplash.com, then pexels.com, there's so many websites where you could get free virtual backgrounds, which you could actually put on your Zoom so that, they don't see all your dirty clothes in the background.
Right.
You probably don't want to do that. But but I really like your tip of the camera shrinking. I think that was really good. And that is something I usually adjust my camera so that I'm in the center. My focus is always in the center. And it was similar to what you said, but I think mine being cognizant to actually shrink it and do that beforehand, I think it's a really, really great tip. Couple of things I wanted to ask, and I have some things which I wanted to ask you here is, do you expect candidates to ask questions towards the end of the interview? Because a lot of people have asked me that question as well. Say you have a 30-minute interview, and then do you really, usually an interviewer would ask the person, hey, do you have any questions for me, right? Do you think it looks bad if you don't have any questions, or do you have to prepare beforehand to ask some thoughtful questions so that the interviewer remembers you? What's your take on that?
Yeah, so I would say prepare some questions, the things that you want to know about the company or the job role, some details related to that. So I would say prepare yourself a list of questions that you would ask going into an interview. And let's say you just had 10 questions, and you could pick from those 10 questions what applied to that particular job, a few items. I mean, you don't need to make it super long and ask a ton of things, but this is another way that a candidate can express their interest in the job and the organization, right? If you want to work at that future employer, they want to know that you have interest in that. And so this is from my side of the Zoom link or table or whatever you want to call it, as the person conducting the interview. If you ask me questions, we almost, if we're on a Zoom meeting, we almost cannot, we want to see who's going to beat each other to unmute, because we love working for our company. Okay. Mm-hmm. We want to talk to you about our company, right? I've just spent a bunch of time asking you a bunch of questions. Now I want to know what you want to know about our organization, how we operate, the job role, that kind of stuff. So I'm excited to talk about the company, do some homework on the company, get to know it, and prep some questions. Ask me about the cool things I'm working on. What are some new things, products that we're maybe engaging in to work on a team here, the day in the life of this particular role? How do company values, how are they lived out in the organization? Why do I like working here? Right. You'll get a lot. You ask that question, why does the employer panel people, why do they like working there? You will understand the company culture so quickly by asking that question. So those are just a few questions that I would throw out there to just make sure that you have some questions to ask for in advance, because it really shows like you're prepared and engaged.
I totally agree. When people ask me the same question, I say that, you better prepare separate questions based on the different interviews you're attending. Say you have 4 Zoom interviews one day for the same company with different people. You don't want to ask the same 3 questions to each interviewer. So for every interview, prepare 3 questions. That's what I tell people, and make it thoughtful and something unique, which will differentiate you, because the thing is to have the best impression and to make yourself, stick into the person's mind, get your name embedded into their head, right? And that's why the questions you were just saying are really, really great. And in addition to that, what does the work-life balance look like? What kind of projects do you think I'll be working on? How do you think my skill set can add value to the team and the company? What are some things I could expect when I join the project? Or what does the product roadmap look like for 2022, right? That is for more of a, once you get into more senior level, the questions you ask may slightly vary. But I agree with you. I definitely think that you need to ask questions to show your interest, right? And again, it boils down to what I started with. It's like going on a first date. The first impression, the best foot forward, and you have to prove to people that you are the best there is, right? And that's what I tell people, and that's the exact thing which actually happens. So,
and that's like you're saying, that's the formation of a relationship. Is when you're dating, it's 2 separate people that are showing a significant amount of interest in one another to come together, right? In an interview is similar to that, where it's like, I want the employee to have interest in the job role and the organization values, doing the work. And I'm expressing, like, I invited them in for an interview. I've prepared questions. I've reviewed their resume. I've got time invested in them already. So let's just have a great experience and a great conversation together, so that I leave with an impression of you really want to work here. And, and I want you to work here. Right.
Yeah.
I remember, Raj, years ago, leaving an interview, and they said, do you have any, how was it phrased? Do you have any something about like reservations, taking the position or whatever, or something related to that? And I said, no, I don't have any reservations taking the position. But I said, what would concern me a little bit is knowing what I know about this company and how it operates and the values at which you live out and do your work. I would be incredibly disappointed to not have the opportunity to be here and contribute.
Nice.
So
Nice. Yeah.
turn a negative into a positive, right?
Yeah, that's a great way to you paraphrase it. Yeah. To what do they call it? Reverse psychology or something? I
Yeah,
don't know.
something like that. Yeah.
That's awesome. Just final few questions before we wrap up. I
Sure.
just want to get your thoughts. What do you think about abstract questions in interviews? So, for example, in Google and Microsoft, they ask questions like, "How many traffic lights are there in the United States?" Right? For me, I think that's so freaking absurd because the thing is, you want to know your experience. Yes, you can ask critical thinking stuff. Okay. Just because you're not able to answer that question, how many traffic lights are there in the United States, does not mean you cannot do your job. And there's a lot of literature and research on this. And again, folks, I'm not making up shit here. You go and you can go see. I'm talking about Google. I'm going to say Google it. But the point is, research has shown those abstract questions actually do not get into the experience and the mindset of the person, right? And there've been a lot of discussions about it. And I'm on the against wagon where I don't think that actually says anything about the person, but instead, say we both are tech folks. So I would say, hey, say you have a system and then this issue is happening. What are the different things you think you could do to solve it? Okay, now we're talking about something relevant to your problem, to your project, your system. Traffic lights doesn't tell me anything about your job, but that is my point of view. But what do you think?
I am not for abstract questions. I think that if you can ask a situational question or something that requires some problem solving or critical thinking, you're going to understand the person's thought process and how they're going to approach problems that would be similar to what they might experience in your organization. So I think those types of questions are really, really good at gaining insight for how somebody's going to approach problems. But abstract questions, I'm just not going to ask those. And I was in an interview years ago where they had a number of those things, and I thought it was just completely ridiculous. I don't even know if I actually ended up getting the job or not, but there was one that I remember they say, why are manhole covers round? And I said, well, because people are round and they go through them. It was so absurd. And they're like, well, actually, if it was square, it could fall through, and round ones will not fall through. And,
Right.
And I'm like, well, okay, but whatever. I don't care.
Let's see. It's funny you say that because I attended a couple of interviews and I just called out the person. I want to respectfully ask you this: how is that relevant to my current job? And I don't mean to, be a killjoy here, but I just really want to know how this question actually is relevant to my job. Instead, if you ask me something related to automation, code, and stuff like that, I could talk to you, At this one, I don't know what we're trying to get into, but so do you want me to still answer this? If they say yeah, okay, then I start putting the ball in their court. Okay, so what kind of manhole? Is it a steel manhole? Then so wonderfully, give some hard time for the other person to make them understand that, dude, this no way relevant to what I'm doing, and you have only 45 minutes. Or 30 minutes or an hour max. You want to spend 10 minutes on why manholes are round? Dude, really think about this, man. Who is paying you, right? So again, that's my point of view. But I know, again, in big companies, people still use that. But I just read a recent article. I think Microsoft has stopped doing that. And because they are also research oriented, data oriented, and data shows that doesn't get anywhere, right? So, but yeah, seems like we both are on the same page. So, thanks for sharing that. Before we let you go, is there anything else which we left out? You think we need to touch upon? Have you shared all your strategies which you thought you wanted to share?
Yeah, a couple quick things just to wrap things up. Problems may happen. You might get disconnected in the Zoom conversation or other things like. And I'd mentioned this story to you before, but the worst interview I ever had that I went on, I got to the place and I didn't want to be late. And so I got there and I had like 10 minutes to get in there, and I knew I was gonna have to wait, but it was raining like cats and dogs. I mean, it was just terrible. It was raining so hard. I opened my car door and it was raining like just horizontally, right? And there was water on the passenger seat. That's how hard it was raining. And I'm wearing a suit and I run into the building. I look like I just got out of the shower in a suit. My hair was all like flat. I was dripping. So I go into the men's restroom and I'm like doing the paper towel thing, and I'm like drying myself off, and I did the best I could. And then I walked in. I didn't call the cancer or whatever. I walked right in there, and there was a receptionist there, and she's looking at me. She's like, "What happened to you?" And I said, "It's raining cats and dogs out there." She's like, "Do you need a towel or something?" And I was like, "If you have one, I'll take it." So I think she actually gave me a towel, and I went in the bathroom and like was able to dry off a little bit more, and then my clothes, honestly. And then the interview, and they were just like shaking their head. We were all laughing about it or whatever. It really broke the ice. But I ended up getting a job offer. Why? Because you just roll with it, right? Just put your best foot forward, show that you can overcome adversity and challenges that may come your way and are out of your control. So I would just share that with people. And one other point, you may get a rejection from an interview. Okay. You may go on an interview and you may get rejected from that. It doesn't always mean that there's something wrong with you, with your skill set, with anything like that. Because Raj, I could have 50 people apply for a position and they're all very qualified people. And I have to go through and decide who is going to be the best fit for what I need in this position at this point in time. Right. So when I tell somebody no, if they come in for an interview and I say no, it doesn't always mean no, never. It may mean no, not now. Right. So just make sure that if there's a company you really want to work at, understand what their job description is, reapply to interviews. Don't be too disappointed if you don't get chosen, because this, and you talk about this all the time, Raj, it's a numbers game.
It's a numbers game.
You are not going to apply for one job and chances are get one job. It is I'm going to apply for a variety of jobs that I'm interested in. I'm going to go on those interviews, and I want to have that big pipeline because I want to make my decision if I want to work there too. So I want to have multiple choices for me and not just take whatever comes along. So there's just a couple of following, things to wrap it up.
I think the key thing, which is a great finisher for this interview, is it's a numbers game. The bottom line is it's a numbers game. And the more you apply, you increase your probability of getting selected. And rejection, don't take it personally, because I could have fought with my wife and then immediately attend the interview. Take an interview and then I'll be in a shitty mood. And unfortunately, the other person has to suffer, right? And your biases could come into picture as well. So I think you just learn from the experience, then retrospect in terms of what you could have done better. Another thing is you could ask feedback to company saying, hey, I know I got rejected. It'd be great if you give me some feedback so that it could improve in the future.
Just know that some companies have a no feedback policy. They're not going to give feedback, and some will give you feedback. So you just don't know what their policy is, but you can always ask.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's not everyone will give feedback, but some may give feedback, right? There's some people are really nice enough to call you and then tell you why they went with another candidate. So I think those are the things which actually shows the culture of the company as well. And final thing, just wanted to say, because you mentioned the interesting interview stories, one of my most interesting stories was 4 years ago. I interviewed for director of quality for one of the biggest food ordering company. I don't want to mention the name. And I got flown to New York. It was it was a whole day interview. Okay. Every freaking team member wanted to interview me. So 1 hour interview, 1 hour interview, 1 hour interview, 4 hours into the interview, they haven't given me water or food. And they're a food ordering delivery company. It's very famous. And the point is, then in my 5th interview, I said, okay, before we start the interview, I'm just going to say this. I'm really thirsty and I haven't had food. I haven't had water. So at least gotta go get water. they said, okay, there's no time for food, but let's get water. So I just went, got water. Then the seventh hour interview, then I just went, I don't have energy. And if I ask you to repeat questions, just bear with me because I haven't had food. And, I don't have energy anymore. So I cannot do coding. I can have a conversation, but I cannot do any critical thinking stuff. I'm going to be really honest with you, right? And then after the 7 hours of interview, I almost missed my flight. I was late for my freaking flight, and I was so tired. I left my baggage in their main office. And then while I was clearing security, I get a call and I got the job, which I didn't end up taking it. But the point is, that was one of my like interesting, or I would say worst experience for being a food delivery company, folks. And this is a company which everyone uses on a very regular basis. They're based out of Chicago, and they didn't give me food. So, anyways, that's my rant for today. But I think we just passed an hour as well. So, thank you so much, Jess, for giving all your strategies related to interviews. I think between the things we both discussed today, I think it's going to be really, really helpful for people to get prepared for the interview and then calm their nerves and then come up with and strategically approach the whole process, right? So I really appreciate your time. And again, first time doing LinkedIn Live, I'm super excited. And Jess is my first person on LinkedIn Live. Right. So it's super exciting. And again, folks, I'm recording the session, so I'm going to put that on social media. After this, I'm going to check the LinkedIn Live to see whether it went properly. If not, don't worry. I've recorded the session. I'm going to put it on Facebook, LinkedIn, and all other social media channels as well. So until then, we will meet again for another awesome guest like Jess, probably in a few weeks. And hope everyone has a great day. And thank you, Jess, again for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Take care, man. Bye.